Welcome back. Coinology. The small copper-colored coin that many people ignore in their pockets every day has a story far bigger than its tiny size. Imagine holding a single United States 1-cent coin from the year 1980. At first glance it may look ordinary, a simple penny that most people would spend without a second thought. But when collectors, historians, and coin enthusiasts examine it closely, they begin to see something much deeper. This little piece of metal carries history, symbolism, craftsmanship, and sometimes even incredible financial value. In some rare situations, coins from this era have been rumored, discussed, and speculated about, with prices reaching astonishing numbers, sometimes talked about in the tens of millions of dollars. While most 1980 pennies are common circulation coins, the fascinating world of numismatics shows that a single small difference in minting, preservation, or rarity can transform an everyday coin into a collector's treasure worth far more than its face value. When you first look at a 1981-cent coin, the color is one of the most noticeable characteristics. Most of these coins appear reddish-brown because they are made primarily from copper. The composition used during that time period consisted mostly of copper with a small percentage of zinc. This gave the coin its classic penny appearance that many generations in the United States grew up recognizing instantly. The surface often develops darker tones over time as it reacts with air, oils, and moisture, creating what collectors call patina. Some collectors actually value certain shades and surface conditions because they tell the story of how the coin aged over decades. The weight of the 1981-cent coin is another important detail that collectors pay attention to. A standard penny from that year weighs approximately 3.11 grams. This weight reflects the metal composition used before the major change that happened in 1982 when the United States Mint switched to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. Because the 1980 penny still belongs to the earlier copper-based era, it has a slightly heavier and more solid feel compared to modern pennies. Many coin collectors appreciate this difference because it connects the coin to a long tradition of copper pennies that date back more than a century in American history. When discussing coin symbols and mint marks, the 1980 penny offers several interesting variations. United States coins are produced at different mint facilities, and each mint location sometimes leaves a small letter on the coin to indicate where it was made. For the 1980 penny, there are generally three versions that collectors talk about most often. The first is the Philadelphia Mint version, which traditionally carries no mint mark. The second is the Denver Mint version, which displays a small letter D below the year on the obverse side of the coin. The third is the San Francisco Mint version, which shows the letter S and is usually associated with proof coins produced specifically for collectors rather than for everyday circulation. These tiny letters may look insignificant to casual observers, but in the world of coin collecting they help determine rarity, production numbers, and collector interest. The design of the 1981-cent coin carries powerful symbolism rooted deeply in American history. On the front side, known as the obverse, you see the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Lincoln's image has appeared on the penny since 1909, marking the centennial of his birth. The portrait was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner and became one of the most recognizable coin designs in American currency. Lincoln's calm expression, the detailed lines of his face, and the classic profile view reflect both dignity and historical importance. Above the portrait appears the word liberty, a concept central to American ideals. The year 1980 is displayed near Lincoln's image, marking the time of the coin's minting. The national motto, "In God We Trust," is positioned along the upper edge of the coin, reflecting the long tradition of including this phrase on United States currency. Turning the coin over to the reverse side reveals another design that was iconic for many decades. The reverse of the 1980 penny features the Lincoln Memorial. This design was introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The memorial building is shown in remarkable detail considering the small size of the coin. If you look extremely closely at a well-preserved coin, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial building. Around the top edge appears the phrase "United States of America," while along the bottom edge is the denomination 1 cent. Above the memorial is the Latin motto "E pluribus unum," which means "out of many, one," symbolizing the unity of the states. Although millions upon millions of these coins were produced in 1980, collectors still search through old coin jars, bankrolls, and inherited collections hoping to discover something unusual. Sometimes coins leave the mint with small mistakes known as mint errors. These errors can include double strikes, off-center designs, missing details, or unusual metal mixtures. A mint error transforms a common coin into something unique, and uniqueness is one of the most important factors in determining a coin's value in the collector market. In extremely rare situations, collectors and auction houses have discussed coins reaching astonishing values. Stories sometimes circulate about coins being valued at tens of millions of dollars, especially when they possess a combination of rarity, historical importance, pristine condition, and collector demand. While the typical 1980 penny found in circulation may only be worth its face value of 1 cent, a flawless coin graded at the highest levels by professional grading services can sell for significantly higher prices. The condition of a coin is measured on a grading scale that ranges from heavily worn coins to perfect mint state examples. Coins that have never circulated and remain in nearly perfect condition are especially attractive to collectors. The history surrounding the 1980 penny is also tied to a broader story of economic change. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, the price of copper began rising significantly in global markets. This created a challenge for the United States Mint because the metal value of the penny started approaching its face value. Producing billions of coins every year became more expensive, and discussions began about changing the composition of the penny. These discussions eventually led to the 1982 transition to a zinc-based coin with a copper coating. Because of this historical shift, pennies from the late 1970s and early 1980s represent the final years of the classic copper-dominant composition. Collectors today often enjoy examining these coins because they represent the closing chapter of a long-standing tradition in American coinage. The solid copper feel, the historical Lincoln Memorial design, and the connection to economic changes make the 1980 penny an interesting piece for anyone interested in history or numismatics. When evaluating the potential value of a coin, collectors look at several important factors. The first factor is rarity. If a coin was produced in small numbers or if only a few examples survive in excellent condition, its value can increase dramatically. The second factor is condition. Coins that remain shiny, detailed, and free from scratches or wear are far more desirable than coins that have circulated heavily. The third factor is demand. If many collectors want a particular coin but only a limited number exist, competition among buyers can drive prices much higher. In the case of the 1980 penny, most examples are still considered common because so many were produced. However, specific varieties or mint errors can attract serious attention in the collector community. For example, coins with doubled lettering or unusual die characteristics sometimes become highly sought after. The story of the 1981 cent coin becomes even more fascinating when we begin to look deeper into how coins are actually created and how small differences during the minting process can change everything about a coin's future. Every single penny begins its life as a blank piece of metal called a planchet. Before a coin ever receives its design, these round metal blanks are carefully manufactured from long sheets of metal that are punched into circular shapes. In the era of the 1980 penny, those blanks were made primarily from copper with a small percentage of zinc mixed into the metal. The blend created the familiar reddish tone that people associate with traditional American pennies. Once the blanks were created, they were transported into the powerful coining presses at United States Mint facilities. In 1980, the main mints responsible for producing pennies were the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, while the San Francisco Mint focused mainly on proof coins intended for collectors. Each blank planchet passed through a machine that struck it with incredible pressure between two metal dies. One die contained the obverse design with Abraham Lincoln's portrait, while the other contained the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial. When the press struck the blank, the design was forced into the metal with great precision, creating the finished coin in a fraction of a second. Even though the process sounds simple, the reality is extremely complex. The dies used in minting coins must be engraved with microscopic precision. Any tiny defect in the die can transfer onto thousands of coins before the problem is discovered. This is one reason why collectors search carefully through coins from different years. A small variation on the die can create a unique pattern or doubling effect that becomes highly valuable among collectors. When collectors examine the 1980 penny closely, they often focus on the details of Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The lines of his hair, the curve of his jaw, and the folds of his coat were carefully sculpted by the original designer. Victor David Brenner created this portrait in 1909, and it remained on the penny for nearly a century. The design became one of the most recognized portraits on any coin in the world. Millions of people saw Lincoln's face every day when they handled their pocket change, yet few realized the artistry involved in creating such a detailed image on such a small surface. Another interesting feature of the 1980 penny is the lettering that surrounds Lincoln's portrait. The word Liberty appears to the left side of the president's profile, while the year 1980 appears on the right side. Above Lincoln's head, the phrase "In God We Trust" stretches along the top edge of the coin. These inscriptions were carefully positioned so that they would remain visible even as the coin experienced wear over time. Designers understood that coins circulate for many years, so the major elements had to be bold enough to survive decades of handling. The reverse side of the coin also tells an important story. The Lincoln Memorial depicted on the back of the penny was chosen as a tribute to the president's legacy and to the monument built in his honor in Washington, D.C. The building itself symbolizes unity, perseverance, and the preservation of the nation during one of its most difficult periods in history. The Civil War tested the United States in ways that few other events ever had, and Abraham Lincoln's leadership during that time made him one of the most respected figures in American history. By placing the memorial on the reverse of the penny, the designers created a coin that honored both the man and the monument dedicated to him. If you examine a well-preserved 1980 penny under magnification, you may notice a tiny detail that surprises many people. Inside the image of the Lincoln Memorial, there is a small shape representing the statue of Abraham Lincoln that sits inside the real memorial building. This means that on the penny, Lincoln appears twice, once as the portrait on the front and again as the statue inside the memorial on the back. This remarkable design detail fascinated collectors for decades and became one of the most beloved hidden features in American coinage. The production numbers of the 1980 penny were enormous because pennies were used constantly in everyday commerce. Billions of coins were produced to keep up with demand across the United States. Grocery stores, banks, vending machines, and countless other businesses required a constant supply of small change. Because of this large production, most 1980 pennies are still very common today. However, collectors are not simply looking for ordinary coins. They are searching for the rare pieces that stand out from the billions produced. One of the most exciting discoveries for a collector is a coin with a minting error. Errors occur when something unusual happens during the production process. Sometimes a coin is struck slightly off-center, causing part of the design to appear missing along one edge. In other cases, the coin may be struck twice by the dies, creating a doubled image of the design elements. There are also situations where the planchet itself may be defective before it is struck, leading to unusual textures or shapes on the finished coin. In the world of numismatics, error coins often become extremely valuable because they are accidental and therefore limited in number. A coin that leaves the mint with an unusual mistake becomes unique compared to the millions of normal coins. Collectors love these oddities because they represent a moment when the otherwise perfect minting process produced something unexpected. The condition of a coin also plays a huge role in determining its value. A coin that has circulated for many years usually shows signs of wear. The high points of the design, such as Lincoln's hair or the columns of the memorial, gradually become smooth as the coin passes through countless hands. Scratches, discoloration, and small dents are also common in circulated coins. However, sometimes a coin escapes circulation entirely. Perhaps someone saved it immediately after receiving it from the bank, placing it into a protective holder or a coin album. Over the decades, such coins can remain in nearly perfect condition. When collectors discover a coin like this from 1980 that still retains its original shine and sharp details, it becomes much more desirable than an ordinary worn example. Professional coin grading companies use a detailed scale to evaluate condition. Coins that are in the highest categories are described as mint state, meaning they were never used in circulation. Within this category, there are several levels depending on how flawless the coin appears under magnification. The difference between two grades might be almost invisible to an untrained eye, but to experienced collectors, those small differences can represent huge changes in value. Another element that affects value is luster. When a coin is freshly minted, the metal surface reflects light in a special way due to the microscopic flow lines created during the striking process. This effect creates a soft glow that collectors call mint luster. Over time, as coins are handled or exposed to the environment, that luster begins to fade. A 1980 penny that still displays strong original luster after decades is considered a special find. In addition to standard circulation coins, the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions of the 1980 penny. Proof coins are made using a different minting process designed specifically for collectors. The dies are polished to a mirror finish, and the planchets are specially prepared to ensure perfect surfaces. Proof coins are struck multiple times with greater pressure, resulting in incredibly sharp details and reflective backgrounds. These coins were sold in special collector sets rather than being released into circulation. Because proof coins are carefully preserved, many examples of the 1980s penny still exist in beautiful condition today. However, even within proof coins there can be rare varieties or exceptional specimens that collectors value highly. The excitement surrounding coin collecting often grows when stories circulate about extraordinary coin values. People hear about rare coins selling for huge amounts at auctions and begin to wonder if similar treasures might exist in their own collections. Sometimes rumors spread about coins worth tens of millions of dollars, including discussions of pennies valued at astonishing figures such as $48 million. While these numbers capture the imagination, they also remind collectors that rarity, condition, and demand together determine the real market value. Even if most 1980 pennies are not worth huge fortunes, they still represent an important period in American coinage. The story of the 1981 cent coin becomes even more fascinating when we begin to look deeper into how coins are actually created and how small differences during the minting process can change everything about a coin's future. Every single penny begins its life as a blank piece of metal called a planchet. Before a coin ever receives its design, these round metal blanks are carefully manufactured from long sheets of metal that are punched into circular shapes. In the era of the 1980 penny, those blanks were made primarily from copper with a small percentage of zinc mixed into the metal. The blend created the familiar reddish tone that people associate with traditional American pennies. Once the blanks were created, they were transported into the powerful coining presses at United States Mint facilities. In 1980, the main mints responsible for producing pennies were the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, while the San Francisco Mint focused mainly on proof coins intended for collectors. Each blank planchet passed through a machine that struck it with incredible pressure between two metal dies. One die contained the obverse design with Abraham Lincoln's portrait, while the other contained the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial. When the press struck the blank, the design was forced into the metal with great precision, creating the finished coin in a fraction of a second. Even though the process sounds simple, the reality is extremely complex. The dies used in minting coins must be engraved with microscopic precision. Any tiny defect in the die can transfer onto thousands of coins before the problem is discovered. This is one reason why collectors search carefully through coins from different years. A small variation on the die can create a unique pattern or doubling effect that becomes highly valuable among collectors. When collectors examine the 1980 penny closely, they often focus on the details of Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The lines of his hair, the curve of his jaw, and the folds of his coat were carefully sculpted by the original designer. Victor David Brenner created this portrait in 1909, and it remained on the penny for nearly a century. The design became one of the most recognized portraits on any coin in the world. Millions of people saw Lincoln's face every day when they handled their pocket change, yet few realized the artistry involved in creating such a detailed image on such a small surface. Another interesting feature of the 1980 penny is the lettering that surrounds Lincoln's portrait. The word Liberty appears to the left side of the president's profile, while the year 1980 appears on the right side. Above Lincoln's head, the phrase "In God We Trust" stretches along the top edge of the coin. These inscriptions were carefully positioned so that they would remain visible even as the coin experienced wear over time. Designers understood that coins circulate for many years, so the major elements had to be bold enough to survive decades of handling. The reverse side of the coin also tells an important story. The Lincoln Memorial depicted on the back of the penny was chosen as a tribute to the president's legacy and to the monument built in his honor in Washington, D.C. The building itself symbolizes unity, perseverance, and the preservation of the nation during one of its most difficult periods in history. The Civil War tested the United States in ways that few other events ever had, and Abraham Lincoln's leadership during that time made him one of the most respected figures in American history. By placing the memorial on the reverse of the penny, the designers created a coin that honored both the man and the monument dedicated to him. If you examine a well-preserved 1980 penny under magnification, you may notice a tiny detail that surprises many people. Inside the image of the Lincoln Memorial there is a small shape representing the statue of Abraham Lincoln that sits inside the real memorial building. This means that on the penny, Lincoln appears twice, once as the portrait on the front and again as the statue inside the memorial on the back. This remarkable design detail fascinated collectors for decades and became one of the most beloved hidden features in American coinage. The production numbers of the 1980 penny were enormous because pennies were used constantly in everyday commerce. Billions of coins were produced to keep up with demand across the United States. Grocery stores, banks, vending machines, and countless other businesses required a constant supply of small change. Because of this large production, most 1980 pennies are still very common today. However, collectors are not simply looking for ordinary coins. They are searching for the rare pieces that stand out from the billions produced. One of the most exciting discoveries for a collector is a coin with a minting error. Errors occur when something unusual happens during the production process. Sometimes a coin is struck slightly off-center, causing part of the design to appear missing along one edge. In other cases, the coin may be struck twice by the dies, creating a doubled image of the design elements. There are also situations where the planchet itself may be defective before it is struck, leading to unusual textures or shapes on the finished coin die. In the world of numismatics, error coins often become extremely valuable because they are accidental and therefore limited in number. A coin that leaves the mint with an unusual mistake becomes unique compared to the millions of normal coins. Collectors love these oddities because they represent a moment when the otherwise perfect minting process produced something unexpected. The condition of a coin also plays a huge role in determining its value. A coin that has circulated for many years usually shows signs of wear. The high points of the design, such as Lincoln's hair or the columns of the memorial, gradually become smooth as the coin passes through countless hands. Scratches, discoloration, and small dents are also common in circulated coins. However, sometimes a coin escapes circulation entirely. Perhaps someone saved it immediately after receiving it from the bank, placing it into a protective holder or a coin album. Over the decades, such coins can remain in nearly perfect condition. When collectors discover a coin like this from 1980 that still retains its original shine and sharp details, it becomes much more desirable than an ordinary worn example. Professional coin grading companies use a detailed scale to evaluate condition. Coins that are in the highest categories are described as mint state, meaning they were never used in circulation. Within this category, there are several levels depending on how flawless the coin appears under magnification. The difference between two grades might be almost invisible to an untrained eye, but to experienced collectors, those small differences can represent huge changes in value. Another element that affects value is luster. When a coin is freshly minted, the metal surface reflects light in a special way due to the microscopic flow lines created during the striking process. This effect creates a soft glow that collectors call mint luster. Over time, as coins are handled or exposed to the environment, that luster begins to fade. A 1980 penny that still displays strong original luster after decades is considered a special find. In addition to standard circulation coins, the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions of the 1980 penny. Proof coins are made using a different minting process designed specifically for collectors. The dies are polished to a mirror finish, and the planchets are specially prepared to ensure perfect surfaces. Proof coins are struck multiple times with greater pressure, resulting in incredibly sharp details and reflective backgrounds. These coins were sold in special collector sets rather than being released into circulation. Because proof coins are carefully preserved, many examples of the 1980s penny still exist in beautiful condition today. However, even within proof coins, there can be rare varieties or exceptional specimens that collectors value highly. The excitement surrounding coin collecting often grows when stories circulate about extraordinary coin values. People hear about rare coins selling for huge amounts at auctions and begin to wonder if similar treasures might exist in their own collections. Sometimes rumors spread about coins worth tens of millions of dollars, including discussions of pennies valued at astonishing figures such as $48 million. While these numbers capture the imagination, they also remind collectors that rarity, condition, and demand together determine the real market value. Even if most 1980 pennies are not worth huge fortunes, they still represent an important period in American coinage. As the exploration of the 1981 cent coin continues, the deeper someone studies this tiny piece of currency, the more layers of history, science, and human curiosity begin to unfold. A coin may be small enough to disappear in the palm of a hand, yet the story behind it stretches across decades of economic decisions, engineering advancements, and the everyday lives of millions of people who used it without thinking twice. The 1980 penny was created during a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of coins every year, trying to keep up with the constant demand for small change in a growing and busy economy. Inside large mint facilities, the production process was almost like a carefully choreographed industrial dance. Enormous machines stamped coins day and night, each press delivering powerful strikes that transferred intricate designs into metal blanks with astonishing speed. Workers monitored the equipment, checked the quality of the coins, and ensured that the final products met strict standards. From those machines, the 1980 pennies flowed into massive containers, eventually being packaged and distributed to banks across the country. Once these coins left the mint, their journeys became unpredictable. Some entered circulation immediately, passing from one person to another in grocery stores, restaurants, bus stations, and gas stations. Others were stored in bank vaults or coin rolls waiting to be distributed months later. Some were saved by collectors who noticed their crisp condition and decided to keep them safe. Every coin followed a different path, creating millions of tiny stories connected to a single year stamped beside Lincoln's portrait. Collectors often imagine where their coins might have traveled. A penny minted in Denver could have started its life in the western United States, moving through small towns and large cities before eventually reaching the other side of the country. Another coin from Philadelphia might have circulated through countless hands in busy metropolitan areas before ending up in a jar on someone's kitchen shelf. Over the decades, these coins silently witnessed everyday moments of life, buying candy, paying for newspapers, making small purchases, or simply being dropped into savings containers. Despite being so common, the 1980 penny carries a level of craftsmanship that many people overlook. The engraving of Lincoln's portrait required incredible skill from the original designer. Every line of the president's hair, the contour of his nose, and the gentle curve of his collar were sculpted to remain recognizable even after years of wear. The fact that these details could be reproduced on billions of coins while maintaining consistent quality is a remarkable achievement in manufacturing. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side also demonstrates careful design planning. The building itself is composed of many columns, steps, and architectural elements. Translating such a complex structure into a small coin required simplifying certain shapes while still preserving the recognizable appearance of the monument. When the design was first introduced decades earlier, people were amazed that the engravers managed to include the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. This small detail became one of the most talked about features among collectors. When studying the 1980 penny, experts sometimes use magnifying tools that allow them to inspect the coin at very high levels of detail. Under magnification, even the smallest elements become visible. Tiny scratches, minute die lines, and microscopic textures reveal clues about the coin's production and history. Collectors who specialize in varieties often spend hours examining coins this way, searching for unusual characteristics that might indicate a rare die or minting anomaly. One of the fascinating aspects of coin collecting is the way knowledge spreads among enthusiasts. When someone discovers a new variety or unusual feature on a coin, they often share the information through coin clubs, publications, and online communities. Other collectors then begin looking for the same characteristics in their own collections. Over time, these discoveries become part of the official catalog of known coin varieties. Sometimes a variety may remain unnoticed for many years before someone finally identifies it. Imagine millions of coins existing for decades before a collector realizes that a certain detail appears slightly different on a small number of them. Suddenly those coins become objects of intense interest. This sense of discovery keeps the hobby alive and constantly evolving. Another element that adds intrigue to coins like the 1980 penny is the concept of survival rate. Even though billions of pennies were minted, not all of them survive in collectible condition. Many coins are lost, damaged, melted, or worn down beyond recognition over time. As decades pass, the number of well-preserved examples gradually decreases. Coins that were once extremely common may become harder to find in top condition simply because so many were used heavily in circulation. For this reason, collectors often look for coins that appear unusually well preserved compared to others from the same year. A bright, sharply detailed 1980 penny can stand out immediately among darker, worn examples. Such coins often attract attention because they represent a snapshot of the moment when the coin was first minted. The topic of coin value always sparks excitement, especially when people hear stories about rare coins selling for astonishing amounts. The idea that a single penny could someday be connected with figures like $48 million captures the imagination of people everywhere. While such extraordinary numbers are usually associated with extremely rare historical coins rather than common circulation pieces, the stories inspire curiosity and encourage people to examine their coins more closely. Collectors understand that a coin's value depends on several factors working together. Rarity is one of the most important. If only a few examples of a certain coin exist, collectors may compete to obtain them. Condition also plays a critical role. Even a rare coin can lose value if it is heavily damaged, while a perfectly preserved example may command a much higher price. Historical significance, collector demand, and market trends all contribute to the final value a coin may achieve at auction. Coin auctions themselves are fascinating events. Collectors, investors, and museums sometimes compete to purchase rare pieces that complete their collections. When a coin appears that is believed to be one of the finest known examples, bidding can become very intense. The final price often reflects not only the rarity of the coin but also the passion of the collectors involved. The 1980 penny may not usually reach such extreme auction results, but it still plays an important role in the broader story of American coinage. It belongs to the long-running Lincoln Cents series, which began in 1909 and remains one of the most widely collected coin series in the world. Because the series spans so many decades, collectors enjoy assembling sets that include every year and mint mark combination. Completing such a collection requires patience and dedication. Some coins in this series are easy to obtain, while others are extremely rare and valuable. Along the way, collectors learn about different periods in American history, changes in minting technology, and the artistic evolution of coin designs. The year 1980 sits near the end of the copper-based era of the Lincoln cent. Only 2 years later, the composition of the penny changed significantly due to rising metal costs. That transition marked the beginning of a new chapter in coin production, making earlier copper pennies like the 1980 version part of a closing era in U.S. minting history. For many collectors, holding a pre-1982 copper penny creates a sense of connection to earlier generations who used similar coins for decades. These pennies share the same basic metal composition that had been used for much of the 20th century. They feel slightly heavier than modern pennies and produce a different sound when dropped on a hard surface. Over time, interest in older copper pennies has even led some people to sort through large quantities of coins searching for pre-1982 examples. While the primary motivation may be historical or collectible interest, the activity also reflects the enduring fascination people have with coins and the stories they carry. The 1980 penny also reminds us that everyday objects can become historical artifacts as time passes. What once seemed like ordinary pocket change slowly transforms into a collectible item simply because it represents a moment in the past. As years turn into decades, even common coins gain significance as reminders of earlier times. Imagine someone in 1980 receiving a shiny new penny from a store cashier. The deeper we continue exploring the 1981 cent coin, the more we begin to understand that a single penny is not just currency. It is a silent witness to history, economics, craftsmanship, and the everyday life of millions of people. When someone holds a 1980 penny between their fingers, they are touching a piece of metal that has traveled through time for more than 4 decades. During those decades, the world changed dramatically, yet the small copper coin remained a constant part of daily transactions. In 1980, the United States economy was moving through an interesting and challenging period. Inflation had been rising during the late 1970s, and the prices of many metals were increasing rapidly. Copper, the primary metal used in pennies at the time, was becoming more expensive. This situation created serious concerns for the United States Mint because producing billions of copper coins every year required massive amounts of raw material. When the cost of copper rises, the expense of minting coins also increases. Mint officials and government economists began studying whether the traditional composition of the penny could continue in the future. For decades, the penny had been mostly copper, giving it its familiar weight of about 3.11 grams and its distinctive reddish appearance. But if copper prices continued rising, the metal inside a penny could eventually be worth as much as or even more than the coin's face value. That would create a major problem for the currency system. Because of these concerns, research began into alternative materials that could be used for the penny. Scientists and engineers experimented with different metal combinations that would be cheaper while still allowing the coin to function properly in vending machines and coin counting equipment. These studies eventually led to the famous composition change in 1982 when the penny switched to a zinc core with a thin outer layer of copper. The 1980 penny therefore belongs to an important transitional era. It represents one of the last generations of pennies produced with the traditional copper-based alloy that had been used for so many decades. For collectors, this historical context adds extra interest to coins from the late 1970s and early 1980s. They symbolize the closing chapter of the classic copper penny period. Another fascinating aspect of the 1980 penny is how its design connects different generations of American history. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front side links the coin to the early 20th century when the design was first introduced. At that time, placing a real historical figure on a circulating U.S. coin was a significant change. Before 1909, most American coins displayed symbolic figures rather than actual presidents. The decision to feature Lincoln honored the 100th anniversary of his birth. People admired Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War and his role in preserving the unity of the United States. By placing his portrait on the penny, the nation created a small everyday reminder of those historical achievements. By the time the 1980 penny was minted, generations of Americans had already grown up seeing Lincoln's face on their coins. The reverse side featuring the Lincoln Memorial added another layer of meaning. The memorial in Washington, D.C., is one of the most recognizable monuments in the United States. It represents remembrance, respect, and national unity. The building's strong columns and symmetrical architecture symbolize stability and strength. By placing the memorial on the back of the penny, the coin design created a visual story that honored both the man and the monument dedicated to him. Collectors often enjoy pointing out the remarkable detail hidden within the memorial design. If a 1980 penny is in excellent condition and viewed with magnification, the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial becomes visible. This small detail means that Lincoln appears twice on the same coin, once on the obverse portrait and again within the memorial on the reverse. It is one of the most charming design secrets in American coinage. As time passed, billions of 1980 pennies continued circulating throughout the country. Many of them became worn and darkened through years of use. Yet some coins escaped heavy circulation. Perhaps they were saved by someone who liked collecting coins, or maybe they sat forgotten in drawers and jars for decades. These preserved coins now offer collectors the chance to see what the penny looked like when it first left the mint. The world of coin grading plays an important role in determining how valuable a coin might become. Professional grading organizations examine coins using high-powered magnification and specialized lighting. Experts study the surfaces carefully, looking for scratches, marks, discoloration, and wear. They evaluate the sharpness of the design details and the strength of the original mint luster. Coins that appear almost perfect receive extremely high grades on the mint state scale. Achieving the highest grades is extremely difficult because even tiny imperfections can reduce the score. A single small contact mark or faint scratch might lower the grade slightly. Because of this strict evaluation system, coins that reach the very top levels are rare and highly desirable. For a coin like the 1980 penny, most examples found in circulation today show at least some wear. But occasionally collectors discover coins that were stored carefully and still look nearly new. When such coins are graded at very high mint state levels, their value can increase dramatically compared to ordinary circulated examples. Another exciting part of the hobby involves searching for mint errors and unusual varieties. Even though the minting process is highly controlled, small mistakes sometimes occur. A coin might be struck slightly off-center, leaving a portion of the blank metal visible along one edge. Another coin might receive a double strike, creating overlapping images of the design. Sometimes the lettering appears doubled due to small shifts in the die during production. These unusual coins capture the imagination of collectors because they are accidental and therefore limited in number. A mint error transforms an otherwise ordinary coin into something unique. Enthusiasts often spend hours examining coins under magnification hoping to discover such rare pieces. Stories about extraordinary coin values often circulate among collectors and the general public. Occasionally people hear rumors or headlines suggesting that a particular penny might be worth enormous sums of money. Numbers like $48 million sound almost unbelievable, yet they capture attention and spark curiosity. While the vast majority of 1980 pennies are worth only a small amount above their face value, the excitement generated by these stories encourages people to look more carefully at their coins. This curiosity is one of the reasons coin collecting remains such a popular hobby around the world. The possibility that a tiny piece of metal could hold unexpected value keeps people searching. The journey of a single penny through time is often unpredictable. A coin minted in 1980 might have traveled through countless cities and states. It may have been used to buy snacks, newspapers, bus tickets, or everyday items. Over the years, it could have passed through hundreds or even thousands of hands. At some point, that same coin might end up in a collector's possession. Once placed into a protective holder or album, its long journey through circulation comes to an end. The coin then becomes part of a collection where it can be studied, appreciated, and preserved for future generations. Many collectors begin their interest in coins during childhood. A child might notice a shiny penny or an unusual date and decide to keep it. That simple act of curiosity often leads to a lifelong hobby. As collectors grow older, they learn about mint marks, die varieties, grading standards, and historical context. Each new discovery adds another layer of enjoyment to the hobby. The 1980 penny continues to play a small but meaningful role in this world of exploration. Even though billions were produced, each individual coin still carries its own story. Some coins may reveal interesting varieties or unusual characteristics. Others may simply serve as reminders of the time when copper pennies were still part of everyday American life. Over the decades, coin designs eventually changed. In 2009, the reverse design of the Lincoln Cents series was replaced with several commemorative images celebrating different stages of Lincoln's life. Later, a new shield design appeared on the back of the penny. Because of these later changes, the Lincoln Memorial reverse used on the 1980 penny now represents a classic design from an earlier era. As the story of the 1981 cent coin continues to unfold, it becomes even clearer that something so small can carry an enormous legacy. A single penny may appear insignificant in modern life, especially in a world where digital payments and large financial transactions dominate everyday conversation. Yet this tiny coin continues to remind collectors, historians, and curious individuals that value is not always measured by size. Sometimes the smallest object can hold the longest and most fascinating journey through time. Imagine the moment in 1980 when a newly struck penny rolled out of a minting press for the very first time. The coin would have been bright, shining with a reddish copper glow that reflected light beautifully. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln would have appeared crisp and sharp, every detail perfectly defined. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse would have shown its architectural lines clearly, and the tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial would have been visible under magnification. From the minting facility, thousands upon thousands of these coins were packed into bags and transported to banks across the country. Once they entered circulation, their journeys became unpredictable. Some coins might have been used immediately for everyday purchases. Others may have been stored in cash registers waiting for customers to receive them as change. A few coins may have been placed directly into coin collections by people who enjoyed saving unusual dates or mint marks. Over the decades that followed, the 1980 penny quietly moved through society. It may have traveled through grocery stores, movie theaters, gas stations, and small neighborhood shops. It might have been dropped into charity boxes, saved in piggy banks, or used in coin-operated machines. Each time it changed hands, it became part of another small moment in someone's life. For collectors today, imagining that journey adds a sense of mystery and wonder to the coin. A single penny could have crossed multiple states, passed through hundreds of wallets, or spent years forgotten in a drawer before being rediscovered. These tiny objects carry invisible stories that no history book could ever fully record. The physical structure of the 1980 penny also reveals much about the engineering behind coin production. Even though the coin is small, its dimensions are carefully controlled. The diameter measures about 19 millimeters, and the thickness is designed to ensure the coin functions smoothly in counting machines and vending systems. The weight of around 3.11 grams reflects the copper-rich alloy used during that time. That copper composition is particularly important because it connects the 1980 penny to a long historical tradition. For much of the 20th century, American pennies were made primarily from copper. This metal gave the coins their characteristic appearance and durability. However, by the late 1970s and early 1980s, copper prices were increasing rapidly in global markets. This economic pressure eventually forced the United States Mint to reconsider the materials used for the penny. The decision to change the coin's composition in 1982 marked a turning point in the history of American currency. After that year, pennies were made mostly of zinc with only a thin copper coating. As a result, pennies produced before the change, including the 1980 version, represent one of the last generations of traditional copper-based cents. Many collectors find this historical connection fascinating because it highlights how economic conditions can influence even the smallest details of everyday money. Another element that adds depth to the 1980 penny story is the craftsmanship involved in creating the dies used for minting. A die is a hardened metal tool engraved with the design that will be transferred onto the coin. The dies must be carved with extraordinary precision because every line, letter, and symbol must appear correctly on the final coin. Once a die begins striking coins, it gradually experiences wear from the immense pressure applied during the minting process. Over time, this work can slightly change the appearance of the coins being produced. For example, certain design elements might appear softer or less defined as the die ages. Collectors who study these variations can sometimes identify different stages in the life of a die simply by examining the coins it produced. Occasionally, a die may develop cracks or small defects. When this happens, those imperfections are transferred onto the coins as raised lines or unusual shapes. Far from being considered damage, these features often make a coin more interesting to collectors. They serve as clues that help experts understand how the coin was produced and how the minting equipment changed over time. Mint errors also play a major role in the excitement surrounding coins like the 1980 penny. Even in highly controlled manufacturing environments, small mistakes can occur. A coin might be struck slightly off-center, leaving part of the blank planchet visible. Another coin might show doubling in the letters or numbers due to slight movement of the die during the striking process. These errors are usually rare because the mint quickly corrects problems once they are discovered. As a result, the few coins that escape into circulation with unusual features can become highly sought after by collectors. Each error coin represents a moment when the otherwise precise minting system produced something unexpected. The world of numismatics, the study and collecting of coins, thrives on this sense of discovery. Collectors spend hours examining coins under magnifying glasses or microscopes, searching for subtle differences that might reveal a rare variety. Sometimes these discoveries lead to new catalog listings and increased interest in specific coins. Stories about coins reaching extraordinary prices often capture the attention of the public. Headlines occasionally suggest that certain pennies could be worth millions of dollars. Figures such as $48 million may sound unbelievable, yet they illustrate the excitement that surrounds rare coins and the possibility of finding hidden treasures in everyday change. In reality, the value of a coin depends on several important factors. Rarity is one of the most significant. If very few examples of a coin exist, collectors may compete intensely to acquire them. Condition is another crucial element. Coins that remain in near-perfect condition after decades are far more desirable than those that show heavy wear. Demand within the collector community also plays a major role. If many collectors are interested in completing a particular coin series, the prices for key dates and exceptional examples can rise dramatically. Auction houses sometimes host dramatic bidding competitions when a rare coin appears on the market. Even though most 1980 pennies are common circulation coins, they still hold meaning for collectors who appreciate the broader Lincoln Cent series. This series began in 1909 and continues today, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. Collectors often try to assemble complete sets that include every year and mint mark combination. Building such a collection requires patience and dedication. Some coins are easy to find, while others are extremely rare and expensive. Along the way, collectors learn about American history, minting technology, artistic design, and the economic forces that shape currency production. The 1980 penny represents a small but meaningful chapter within this long timeline. It stands near the end of the copper era and carries the familiar Lincoln Memorial design that millions of people recognized instantly for decades. Holding one today is like holding a small artifact from a specific moment in the past. Another reason collectors enjoy studying older pennies is the simple joy of discovery. Searching through rolls of coins from banks, examining old jars of change, or exploring inherited collections can sometimes reveal unexpected treasures. Even if the coins discovered are not extremely valuable, the process of searching and learning brings excitement. For many people, coin collecting becomes more than just a hobby. It becomes a way to connect with history in a very personal way. Instead of reading about the past only in books, collectors can actually hold pieces of that past in their hands. Each coin carries a date, a design, and a story waiting to be explored. As the story of the 1981 cent coin moves even further, it begins to reveal how something so ordinary can slowly transform into an object of fascination across generations. Coins are different from most objects people use every day because they rarely disappear quickly. A coin can survive decades, sometimes centuries, quietly traveling from one person to another while the world around it continues to change. The 1980 penny is a perfect example of this quiet endurance. It was created in a busy minting facility during a specific year in history, yet more than 40 years later many of these coins still exist, still moving through pockets, jars, and collections. Think about the moment when a 1980 penny first entered circulation. The coin was bright and newly minted, its copper surface glowing with a warm reddish tone. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln appeared crisp and bold, and the tiny architectural lines of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side were sharp and detailed. When the coin dropped into a cash register drawer or into someone's pocket, it began its long journey through everyday life. At that time, pennies played a larger role in daily transactions than they often do today. Small purchases frequently required exact change, and pennies helped make those transactions possible. They were used to round out prices, count totals, and make sure both the buyer and seller received the correct amount. The small coin became part of millions of everyday interactions that took place across cities, towns, and rural communities. Over time, the 1980 penny experienced wear as it passed through countless hands. The raised parts of the design slowly became smoother. The shine of the metal gradually faded as the coin encountered air, moisture, and oils from human touch. These natural changes are part of the life cycle of any coin. Each mark, scratch, or discoloration tells a small story about where that coin may have been. Collectors often find this process fascinating. While some people prefer coins in perfect mint condition, others appreciate the character that develops through years of circulation. A well-worn coin can feel like a historical artifact that has truly lived through decades of human activity. It may have been used during important moments in history, passed through countless communities, and traveled distances that no one could ever fully trace. The science behind the coin's material also adds another layer of interest. The 1980 penny was made primarily of copper with a small percentage of zinc mixed into the alloy. Copper is a metal that reacts with the environment over time, which explains why older pennies develop darker tones. This gradual change in color is called oxidation, and it creates the range of shades collectors observe on older coins, from bright red to reddish brown to deep brown. Professional coin graders pay close attention to these color stages. A coin that still maintains its original red color decades after minting is often considered especially desirable. Such coins must have been stored carefully, protected from excessive air and moisture. Because this level of preservation is rare, coins with full red color can sometimes command higher prices among collectors. Another detail that collectors examine carefully is the clarity of the lettering on the coin. The words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," "United States of America," and 1 cent are all important parts of the design. Over time, heavy circulation can soften the edges of these letters. A coin that still shows sharp, well-defined lettering indicates that it has experienced less wear. The mint marks also continue to play an important role in identifying the coin's origin. As mentioned earlier, pennies minted in Denver carry the letter D beneath the ear, while those minted in Philadelphia traditionally carry no mint mark. Proof coins produced in San Francisco include the letter S. These small letters help collectors track where the coin was produced and sometimes how rare it might be compared to others from the same year. While millions of 1980 pennies were minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, collectors still search for exceptional examples among them. A coin that shows unusually strong strike quality, beautiful luster, and minimal marks can stand out from the vast number of ordinary coins. When such coins are professionally graded and preserved in protective holders, they become prized additions to high-quality collections. Error coins continue to capture the imagination of collectors as well. During the minting process, even the smallest misalignment or mechanical issue can create a coin that looks different from the standard design. A coin might be struck off-center so that part of the design is missing. Another might display doubled letters or numbers due to slight movement in the dies. These unusual coins are exciting because they are accidental and therefore uncommon. Each error coin is slightly different, making it unique compared with the billions of normal coins produced. Collectors often spend hours studying their coins carefully in hopes of spotting such rare characteristics. The stories surrounding extremely valuable coins continue to inspire curiosity around the world. Occasionally, headlines or discussions mention coins reaching incredible prices, sometimes even rumored values such as $48 million. These stories capture attention because they suggest that something as small as a penny might hold extraordinary value. While the typical 1980 penny found in circulation will not reach such extreme prices, the possibility of discovering a rare coin still motivates collectors and treasure hunters. History has shown that remarkable discoveries can happen in the most unexpected places. Valuable coins have been found in inherited collections, forgotten coin jars, and even in everyday pocket change. Coin roll hunting has become a popular activity for enthusiasts who enjoy searching for interesting coins. People obtain rolls of pennies from banks and carefully examine each coin for unusual dates, mint marks, or varieties. Although most coins will be ordinary, the excitement comes from the possibility that one of them might reveal something special. The 1980 penny fits naturally into this kind of exploration because it still appears frequently in circulation. Many collectors enjoy saving copper pennies from before 1982 because of their historical composition and heavier weight compared to modern zinc-based coins. Over time, these coins have become symbols of an earlier era in American minting. Another fascinating aspect of coins like the 1980 penny is how they connect people across generations. A grandparent might pass down a small coin collection to a younger family member, including pennies from different decades. When the younger collector examines those coins, they are essentially touching pieces of history that existed long before they were born. These moments often spark curiosity about the past. Why was this coin made? What was happening in the world when it was minted? Who might have used it before it became part of this collection? Each coin becomes a starting point for exploring history in a personal and tangible way. Over the years, the Lincoln Cents series itself has evolved. The Lincoln Memorial design used on the 1980 penny remained on the reverse side until 2008. After that, new designs were introduced to celebrate different stages of Abraham Lincoln's life, followed later by the shield design that appears on modern pennies today. Because of these changes, the Lincoln Memorial reverse has become a recognizable symbol of the earlier period of the series. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln Cents often enjoy assembling complete date sets that include every year from the early 20th century to the present. Within such collections, the 1980 penny represents a link between earlier copper coins and the modern pennies produced today. As decades continue to pass, coins from 1980 slowly become historical artifacts in their own right. What once seemed like ordinary pocket change gradually gains significance simply because it represents a moment in time. Future collectors may study these coins to better understand the materials, technology, and economic conditions of that era. The humble penny therefore continues its quiet journey through history. It may be small, inexpensive, and easily overlooked, yet it carries within it the combined stories of art, engineering, economics, and human life. Every scratch and every change in color reflects another chapter in the coin's long existence, and somewhere, perhaps hidden in a jar of spare change or resting unnoticed in a drawer, a 1980 penny might still be waiting for someone to pick it up, examine it closely, and begin another chapter in the remarkable story of this tiny yet enduring piece of currency. As the long journey of the 1981 cent coin reaches its final chapter, it becomes clear that this tiny piece of copper-colored metal represents far more than just a single cent of monetary value. Over the decades it has quietly existed as part of everyday life, passing through countless hands, traveling through cities and towns, and becoming part of ordinary transactions that together formed the rhythm of daily commerce. What once began as a newly minted coin emerging from a powerful press inside a United States mint facility eventually became part of a much larger story that stretches across time. When we think about the year 1980 itself, it was a moment in history filled with change, growth, and uncertainty. Technology was beginning to advance rapidly, economies were adjusting to new global realities, and societies around the world were evolving in countless ways. Yet in the middle of all these developments, the small 1-cent coin continued to serve its simple purpose. It helped people make exact payments, provided change for small purchases, and quietly supported the mechanics of everyday commerce. Inside the minting facilities where the 1980 pennies were created, the process was both precise and powerful. Metal planchets moved rapidly through massive coining presses, where engraved dies struck them with incredible force. In a fraction of a second, the blank piece of metal transformed into a detailed coin displaying the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. That moment of transformation was the birth of a coin that might remain in existence for generations. The design itself carried deep symbolism. Abraham Lincoln's portrait had already appeared on the penny for more than 70 years by the time the 1980 coin was minted. His image represented leadership, perseverance, and unity during one of the most difficult periods in American history. The Civil War tested the nation's strength and identity, and Lincoln's leadership helped guide the country through that crisis. Because of this legacy, his portrait became one of the most enduring symbols on American currency. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial added another layer of meaning. The monument stands in Washington, D.C., as a tribute to Lincoln's life and the ideals he represented. Its strong columns and balanced architecture symbolize stability and unity. When designers placed the memorial on the back of the penny decades earlier, they created a coin that honored both the man and the monument dedicated to him. One of the most charming secrets hidden within that design was the tiny statue of Lincoln visible inside the memorial building when viewed with magnification. This detail meant that Lincoln appeared twice on the same coin, once as the large portrait on the front and again as the small statue within the memorial on the reverse. For collectors, this tiny artistic decision became one of the most fascinating aspects of the coin. As the 1980 pennies moved into circulation, their individual stories began to unfold. Some coins experienced heavy use almost immediately, passing from one transaction to another countless times. These coins gradually developed scratches, worn surfaces, and darker tones as the copper reacted with the environment. Other coins followed quieter paths, perhaps being stored in jars, piggy banks, or desk drawers where they remained relatively untouched for years. A few coins were recognized by collectors early on and carefully preserved. These coins may have been placed in protective holders or albums that shielded them from air, moisture, and excessive handling. Because of this protection, some 1980 pennies today still appear nearly as bright and detailed as the day they were minted. Such coins provide collectors with a glimpse into the past, showing exactly how the coin originally looked when it first entered the world. The concept of condition became extremely important in the world of coin collecting. Professional grading organizations developed detailed systems for evaluating coins based on their level of wear, surface quality, and overall appearance. Coins that remained in pristine condition could receive very high grades, sometimes placing them among the finest known examples of that particular year and type. When a coin achieves such a high grade, collectors often compete to obtain it. Auction houses sometimes feature exceptional coins that attract intense interest from buyers. These auctions can become dramatic events, with collectors placing bids that reflect both the rarity of the coin and the desire to complete a collection. Stories about coins reaching extraordinary values have circulated for many years. Occasionally, people hear rumors or reports suggesting that certain coins might be worth millions of dollars. Numbers like $48 million sound almost unbelievable, yet they capture attention because they hint at the possibility that hidden treasures might exist among ordinary coins. In reality, the value of a coin depends on a combination of factors. Rarity plays a major role. If only a few examples of a particular coin or variety exist, collectors may be willing to pay significant amounts to acquire one. Condition also matters greatly, as coins with minimal wear and strong original luster tend to be more desirable. Historical significance, collector demand, and market trends all contribute to determining how much a coin might ultimately be worth. For the average 1980 penny found in circulation today, the value usually remains close to its face value. However, the coin's true significance often lies in the stories it represents rather than its monetary worth. Each coin serves as a small historical artifact that reflects the technology, economics, and design philosophy of the time when it was created. Another interesting dimension of the 1980 penny is its place within the larger timeline of American coinage. Just 2 years after it was minted, the composition of the penny changed dramatically due to rising copper prices. Beginning in 1982, most pennies were produced with a zinc core covered by a thin layer of copper. This change reduced production costs but also marked the end of the long tradition of mostly copper pennies. Because of this shift, coins like the 1980 penny represent the closing years of the classic copper era. They carry the weight, color, and metallic composition that had defined the penny for generations. When collectors hold one of these coins next to a modern penny, they can feel the difference immediately. Coin collectors often develop a deep appreciation for these historical connections. Building a collection becomes more than just gathering coins, it becomes a journey through time. Each coin represents a specific year, a specific moment when it was created and released into the world. By assembling coins from different years and mints, collectors essentially create a timeline of history expressed through metal. The 1980 penny occupies a modest but meaningful place in that timeline. It stands as a reminder of a period when the Lincoln Memorial design was still the standard reverse for the penny and when copper still dominated the coin's composition. Over time, designs would change and materials would evolve, but the coins from this era remain as lasting symbols of that moment in minting history. Another powerful aspect of coins is their ability to connect generations. A coin minted decades ago may eventually be passed down within a family, becoming part of an inherited collection. When a younger collector examines that coin, they are touching something that existed long before they were born. It becomes a physical link between different eras and different people. This sense of continuity makes coin collecting unique among hobbies. Coins are durable, portable, and rich with historical meaning. They carry the marks of time yet remain recognizable even after decades of use. Every coin holds a date that permanently records the year of its creation, turning each piece into a tiny historical document. Even today, many 1980 pennies still circulate quietly in everyday life. Someone might receive one in change without paying attention to the date. Another might sit unnoticed in a jar of spare coins for years. Yet each of those pennies still carries its original design, its copper composition, and its connection to the year 1980. And so the journey of the 1980 penny continues, moving quietly through time just as it has for decades. Whether resting in a collector's album, sitting at the bottom of a jar, or traveling once again through everyday transactions, it remains a simple yet powerful reminder that even the smallest pieces of history can carry stories that last for generations.